so we're recording not live, even though it says it failed to go live. For the past week, it's been indicating its failure to start recording. It's actually been recording. We're not sure why that's happening. We have I think, issue lodged with Google on that. Anyway, this is a daily Scrum that we have out of the Agile Ventures organization. So we can talk about who Agile Ventures is in a minute, but we do this every day at 5:15 Eastern Standard Time. Mm-hmm. And we talk about anything going on that people want to talk about. Generally, what it's been lately is that a few of us join, maybe 3 of us join this every day, and we talk about a particular project that Agile Ventures has going on called Met Plus. And so we had talked about expanding this to include people coming in from the Meetup site, and so that's what's been happening there. So right now there's nobody online that we can talk about the Met Plus project with except myself, but I tell you what, why don't we just go ahead and go through the motions anyway of having a short Scrum to get that out of the way. So I'll start. That's okay. So, all right, so today what I've been doing is working on a particular story for the Met Plus project. This story involves a little bit of background there. We switched over to an email delivery service recently called Mailgun. There's SendGrid out there. There's a bunch of these guys out there who can reliably handle email delivery and make sure you're whitelisted and things don't happen, adversely to your mail that you're trying to get out. Our email in the Met Plus project app is transactional. We use it for inviting people, and we use it for confirming via a link in an email that they're actually been invited before we allow them to be a member. So it's transactional. It's very important for us to get emails. So I'm switching over to using an email validator service, which is a nice RESTful API, to confirm that a particular email is actually valid. And it's not just format. They look at DNS records. They look at whether there's an MX record, in other words, an email server for the domain, things like that. So it's much more robust. So I'm in the process of doing that. That's what I spent what time I had on the project today working on. Okay. And that's it for me, no blockers. Miriam, would you like to go next?
I didn't work on anything on the project.
Of course not.
I'm, being on the Hangout and being at any of the Meetup pair programming things. So I'm just curious how it works and what the technology stack is and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that then too. And Reed?
Hi, I am here through the Meetup site. I joined the remote pair programming and Meetup group, I don't even know, maybe a year and a half ago, or I guess probably about a year ago. I moved to California, and I don't know anyone here to pair program with, really. And the Meetup groups that I was in there don't exist here. So I joined this, and it's been pretty dead silent. So now there's something through Agile Ventures. I am obviously not associated with any of those projects at this point, so I can tell you a little bit about myself. I work for Canonical. I'm working on a project called Juju, which is loosely put it allows you to model applications and deploy them to any public cloud or some private clouds, including your own sort of metal in a data center. We do fragile development. Well, so sort of agile development, but sort of not. We use a lot of terms. We have daily scrums. We don't really do stories or acceptance testing yet. Some people are pushing for that. I'd like to see us get there more closer to that. But it's a big project with a lot of people all around the globe with varying levels of experience, and it's a very complex beast. It's 1 million lines of code or so with dependencies. So it's pretty difficult to get everybody to work the same way, because there's about 5 different teams. And they all historically have their own way of doing things. I also have a couple of personal projects, and that's what I was sort of looking for here. was to find somebody to do some pair programming with and possibly work on a project that's not work, because obviously I can't work with people that don't work for the company. They haven't signed agreements to sign over their code, so forth and so on. And that's really where I am. Unfortunately, this also lands in the middle of my workday, so I couldn't really stop and pair program afterwards. But I might just join and have some company in the middle of the day for a while and see how things go and see how other people do Agile.
Okay, cool. You mentioned Canonical. What does Canonical do? I'm not familiar with that company.
So they're famous for Ubuntu.
Oh, okay.
That was the original product, and still a product. So of course they do a lot of other things. The project that I'm working on is called Juju, which so
cloud deployment.
I'm sorry?
Some kind of cloud deployment.
Right. It's more of an application modeling and deployment sort of management framework. It's kind of difficult. So you can model your application. The unit of sort of the smallest unit of modeling is called a charm, which is sort of akin to not the same thing at all, but maybe akin, if you're familiar with Ansible, to a play. So Ansible, there's Salt, there's Chef, there's Puppet.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody use any of those?
Yeah, I've heard of Chef and Puppet. I haven't actually used them, but I understand them.
So I think Chef operates sort of on the smallest unit of organization is a recipe, and then you can put those together into a cookbook, which is the same sort of Ansible. There's a play, and then there's a playbook.
Similar to docs and containers as well?
I'm sorry?
Docs and containers?
Okay, that's Chef.
Okay.
Is that, I think, are you talking about Chef there?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've also heard of docs and containers.
Okay, so in Juju you model things as charms, and then you can have a bundle of charms together. It's called a bundle.
Okay.
You can deploy, say, Hadoop, and so it'll put together a bunch of charms that do JVM deployment, Pig, various other pieces of Hadoop, and squirt it out. Or you can do a bundle that does MySQL, WordPress, Apache, or Nginx, PHP, and it'll configure all of it.
Okay.
And so in a single command or two, you can deploy to AWS or Google Compute Engine, or to some containers, or IBM SoftLayer, or a number of other public clouds, or your own private cloud if you run OpenStack. It can deploy it to any of those. So if you were to model your own application, you could sort of set it up so that you could run it in multiple. So if Amazon disappeared one day, you could just redeploy it to Google, or you might, as a large organization, want to have a dark deployment in one of them ready to come up if something happens.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Miriam, do you want to give an idea of your background in terms of programming and what you're trying to do or what you want to do?
Yeah, so I'm a Rails developer. I've been doing it for almost 5 years now. I'm currently working at Sonic Healthcare, and I'm working on a project, LabIS, which is a pathology it's a pathology app that takes it from delivery, like whenever couriers bring it into the lab, until it goes back to the referring physician. So it tracks it, and it's a desktop application for the laboratories that receive specimens. A lot of health-related stuff that I'm learning. I've been at the company for about 6 years. Months, sorry. Before that, I was at Turner, working on HLN.com. And before that, I was at a couple of startups here in the Atlanta area. So, yeah.
Cool. For myself, so I've been doing this kind of programming probably for about 2 years now, so I'm a relative newbie compared to you guys. I came out of the MOOC courses out of Berkeley, the 169.x courses, if you guys are familiar with those. Agile development. Well, they've returned it now. They're calling it Agile development using Ruby on Rails.
Okay.
Basic and advanced. and it's a pretty popular MOOC course if you want to learn modern software engineering practices and principles and a little bit of technology, broad spread. It's great. It's not about Ruby on Rails per se. It's really about modern software engineering practices. So you get a broad overview of pretty much everything you'd ever want to know, and you, of course, dip down to some depth during homework assignments and things like that. You learn Ruby, learn Ruby on Rails, you learn a little JavaScript as you go along. You learn RSpec, you learn Cucumber, all these typical things. But again, it gives you a broad overview of mostly software engineering practices as opposed to deep dive in specific technology, and it's just great. So I joined Agile Ventures shortly after I took those courses, and I've been working on a couple of projects there. Ruby on Rails projects, sprinkling of JavaScript, things like that. We tend to practice some modified version of extreme programming. We do pair programming. We do TDD and BDD. For the most part, some of us tend to follow TDD less than we should, like we develop first and then work out the test later. You're looking at a guilty party right here. But we try to do TDD as much as possible. So that's kind of where we're at this point. And Agile Ventures is, if you guys wanted to spend more time on your personal side, get involved with real-world projects, you could check out the list of projects available in Agile Ventures. Most of them, because we get fed, Agile Ventures is associated formally with this set of MOOC courses. In fact, the founder of Agile Ventures is now one of the professors that you see in the videos for the MOOC course. His name is, first name is Sam, and so he basically founded Agile Ventures, and what happens in the MOOC courses, the students are steered toward Agile Ventures if they want to exercise their skills further on real-world projects for real clients. The projects that Agile Ventures works on are all for nonprofits, charities or nonprofits. So that's one of the criteria. So for instance, one of the projects I'm working on is for a jobs agency. I never heard of a jobs agency either, in Detroit. And a jobs agency is basically a bunch of people who work together to try to broker job seekers with employers and make a marriage. And so they're literally kind of like brokers. They have relationships with employers. They get to know people. They get to know job seekers, and they try to find the right match. And so we've been working with. Sorry.
I actually did that type of work before for a nonprofit in Philadelphia.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. Yeah, so we've been working with this guy, Chet, out of Detroit, who's I think he's taken over one of the abandoned high schools there, and he's trying to make a vocational training facility out of it to help people get skills for finding jobs. And so we're building a SaaS app, not just your typical post a resume and employers can find you, but a SaaS app to help him manage his agency activity and the people in his agency doing things as job developers and case managers. And also job seekers can go there, see jobs, post their resume and apply, and employers can post jobs, look at job seekers, look for a match, all that kind of thing. So it's good. So it's been a great experience. In terms of pair programming, I'm not sure that we want to do something right now, but what I would say is if you guys want to continue to hook up on these and find opportunities to pair program, is there any particular pair programming opportunity either one of you were looking at now? I know, Reed, you've got to break off and go back to work soon. So,
so I don't know if you guys have ever used or Apple push notifications, APN. I think they're on version 2 now. And Google has a similar sort of system called Google Cloud Messaging, GCM, I think is its acronym or whatever. So essentially, there are services where you can send a message, and then it gets sent to somebody's phone or device, typically. So there's an open standard emerging for generic web. What is it? Generic event delivery using web push. So it's an RFC. It's not done yet, but it's getting there. It involves a number of different things, but it sort of is the idea is that you could set up a generic event delivery service where applications could register uh, um, an endpoint, and then clients could register that they want to be notified, and then the web application would send notifications to the delivery service, and then when a device comes online, this typically this is oriented around phones and tablets because battery power costs a lot to have a radio on. So this lets you sort of come online for a brief period with a long-lived connection. As soon as it like sort of the battery wakes up the phone and says, "Hey, is there anything there?" The delivery service would then sort of have any different messages all lined up and send them all at once, so that you only need to have the radio on for a fraction of a second and to save battery power. So my personal project is to start sort of flushing out and building this generic message delivery service using web push. I'm not too far along on it. It's on GitHub under my name is Reed O'Brien, and it is on there. I can put a link in. I'm sorry, it's not on. It's on GitLab.
GitLab, okay.
And I don't know if that comes out as a URL or not, but it's there. I've got very little bit started. It took a while to read through all there's about 5 or 6 different RFCs that encompass all of it. But I've gotten the briefest of starts on a flight back from London last month. Anyways, I try to work on that on Saturdays when my wife lets me.
Aren't there SaaS services that do that, Reed? That talk to, in Windows phones as well, I think, right?
Yeah, so Apple has one called Apple Push Notification Service,
Yes.
and Google has one called Google Cloud Messaging. But if you wanted to run your own, how do you do it? Like, what if you didn't want to send your messages through Apple or pay Google to send messages? Right. Then you're sort of stuck, right? The other aspect of it right now and I think it's in a large part because it's an emerging standard, is that when you send messages through Apple or Google, the content is not encrypted, and part of this standard is that the content has to be encrypted so that the push service doesn't know what the message is, only where it's coming from and where it's going. I don't know if you guys have used Facebook recently and allowed it to sort of send messages. So your browser can have a worker running in the background, and you can load an application into a background process inside of all the modern browsers now, so that even if you don't have a tab open for Facebook, there's a background process running and it can send you notifications even when you don't have a tab open. And so this is sort of the browser end of this technology. And so it would allow you to have these push notifications for web services on your phone instead of having to install an app through a store. So you could, yeah. So it's the open web version of what you can get through Android and Google, or through Windows and Microsoft, or through Apple and the iPhone or whatever, iPad. But if you want to do this on all of the platforms without having to write native apps for all of them, you're sort of SOL for a while longer. But I think that's sort of the long-term goal of the RFC, the sort of this project.
No, I think there is I don't know if you work in Ruby, Reed, but there is a Ruby gem called rpush.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, and they do something similar. They deliver to APN, Apple, Google, GCM, Windows Phone push notification service, and Amazon device messaging. I don't know about See, do they also deliver to Google? I'd imagine they deliver to Google. I don't know, but yeah, that's all open source stuff. ActiveMyTin, and I don't know exactly how that would intersect with what you're trying to do, but you may want to take a look at that.
I will, and I think that the way that it would intersect is it would be another target for our push to deliver to. But you could set your own up, as in if you were NASA and you wanted to set up push notifications to all of your employees on their phones without having to build an app for Apple, build an app for the Google Play Store, for the Apple Store, and for the Windows Store, and people could just get their, NASA mail by going to the, webmail.nasa.gov and logging in, and then getting push notifications for mail. That would be a much simpler way for NASA to do it than to maintain 3 different apps.
Yeah.
And so for coming from the sending push notices is pretty well solved. There's a number of libraries that do it. It's the sort of brokering between the client and the application that like it's real easy to receive them too. And I think web push is also workers and push are available, I think, in the current versions of Firefox, Google Chrome, and I don't know about mobile Safari, but the mobile versions of those, I think, have some level of that capability. But there's no open source specification even for it to happen yet without using a proprietary solution.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help at all?
I think so. I'd have to look at it in more detail, but I think I got an idea of what you're trying to do there.
Yeah, so the project that I posted the sort of not really a link to, I don't know why it's not coming.
It opens up.
The README is just the specs that are involved. So there's a few different specifications that are involved in sort of assembling the whole thing. And anyways, so I had to read through them all, and they get updated about every 6 weeks or 2 months or something. Somebody changes spelling or something. Anyways, I'm talking a lot, and this is how not to do a Scrum.
Well, we stopped the Scrum a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Just kibitzing now. Yeah, well, that sounds cool. You should look at rpush. Again, I'd like to get your thoughts on how rpush stops and where you want to go beyond that.
Okay, I will have a look at the docs.
There's also these guys, and you're probably familiar with them, called One Signal. They're a SaaS provider. They're focusing on web push and delivery through GCM and Apple right now.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at them a while ago for some thing we wanted to do on our project, and ended up with going with a simpler tool, using WebSockets just to push notifications to the browser. It's all I needed to do. I'm not as ambitious of what you're trying to do, which is also include mobile apps or mobile OSs, in fact. But anyway, it sounds pretty cool. I would not be the right guy to pair on that anyway, because I'm not experienced enough to add value. But there may be other people showing up on this Scrum from time to time who might be able to do that.
First of all, I would doubt that. Never undersell yourself. I'm sure you have a lot to add to any project. But yes, I'll be back. I'll read through the rpush thing, and I'll see if I can have a better answer maybe tomorrow or the next day. And I aim to do this on Saturday afternoons Pacific time, usually 2 to 5 or 1 to 4. I go to a meetup here, and that's sort of my open window where I'm allowed to do whatever I want and not work on the house or talk about my feelings or whatever.
Or drink heavily if it's been that kind of a week, I guess. Huh?
Right. And so I think that this is only weekdays, right? This particular.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, if there's an audience who people who want to do that certainly could be expanded. I think Sam started talking about creating one for the weekend, either a Saturday or Sunday Scrum. So maybe we can find out more about that and update you.
Sounds cool.
And Miriam, what are you trying to do in terms of pair program? Are you just hooking up to listen in and?
I haven't looked at any projects. Oh, were you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I haven't looked at any of the projects or anything. I don't have any personal projects that I'm working on. I just want to get better at what I do. And I think that pair programming is a great way to do that. The project that I'm working on right now with my company, the tests are horrendous. And I don't want to lose what little bit of TD that I do know and have a grasp of. So I like just the idea of like getting my hands dirty on something other than work.
I see. So in terms of horrendous, you mean that there's not enough tests, or they're badly written and they run slow, or?
No, there's not enough tests.
Okay.
I added a gem to figure out, what the coverage was, and it was like literally. It took me a while to understand because the numbers just didn't make sense to me. It was literally less than 0.5%.
Okay. I thought you were less than half the code, but that less than.
No, less than half.
Half of 1% of the code. That's pathetic.
At first, it was like 53%. There's no way this is 53% coverage. I kept looking at the number and looking at the number, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 0.048. And I'm just like, so I did set up a test suite with the tools that I'm used to using, and I've talked to my manager's manager about, we need tests. This is really ridiculous. It caused frustration, and I'm pretty new on the team, but a part of my decision to, like, they're asking me if I would like to extend my contract or come on full time. And I'm like, not if we don't have tests. Like, it's just not, I'll bang my head up against the wall. So I've kind of been taking the lead on that, and I'm fine with that. But it's absolutely necessary in my mind to have test coverage.
And what are they doing? Are they doing RSpec or mini test? Any Cucumber?
I'm doing Capybara with Selenium, RSpec. Yeah. What they had before was, they also are kind of migrating their code, for lack of a better word, from Rails 2 to Rails 4. So Rails 2 has a little bit more tests, but Rails 4 really doesn't have any. So I actually set up the test suite for Rails 4. And that's part of what I was hired on to do. So some of my work is done in Rails 2, but we're also like redoing a lot of the modules in Rails 4. Mm-hmm. So it's a good place to be able to implement that testing, Now TDD for them is not even really, I don't think they're thinking that far. If you don't even have test coverage, then, TDD is like foreign, but
going to Mars or something. Yeah.
Right. So, I want to get better at what I do. And I was on a team before where we pair programmed like 2 days out of the week, and it was beneficial all the way around. So.
Okay. I mean, well, our project, for instance, the MetPlus project, we're 100%, we're RSpec and Cucumber. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what we do. We don't do many tests or anything like that. So, and we've got a lot of people on Agile Ventures in these projects who know that technology very well. I'm actually fairly decent at it as myself. I think our code coverage on MetPlus is 90-point-something%. So we're going to get it up to mid-90s hopefully fairly soon. But we take testing seriously. And believe me, the project manager there is Hua. He can join us tonight, but he'll be on the other scrums going forward. And if you don't have test coverage in your pull request that you put out there, it's not going to be merged. I'll guarantee that. And I'm a stickler for that as well. So, yeah, we got the religion too.
Read your question about how many days a week, what?
What was that? Sorry.
You were pair programming at your previous position, and the robot came on and cut you off.
A couple of days a week.
Okay.
Like by design. Sometimes it was more than that, but set aside time for a couple of days a week. And then as things come up, it was a small team and we worked on a lot of stuff together just because two heads are better than one, you know.
I do.
But I would pair program with my direct manager on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the other guy would pair program with him on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that was 2 days a week for both of us.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So we couldn't pair program on your particular company's software, right, Miriam? I'm assuming.
No.
Yeah, certainly same problem that Reed has. Yeah. Okay. Well, take a look at the projects. Maybe there's something there that we can do together, and we can spend some time on, in particular, testing, creating tests and that good stuff. Curious, why aren't you guys going to Rails 5? You're going to Rails 4, you said. Why not just go right to Rails 5?
Well, they came up with this plan apparently over a year ago, and
okay.
it's a large corporation, and things just take forever to get approved and happen. And I'm not used to that. I'm in a startup feel. Even at HLN, like, you know, Turner's a big company, but HLN it was three of us working on the app, and things had a pretty quick turnaround, and we would meet with product owner directly, you know, about features. And so it's really my first time, honestly, working with such a slow process. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Medical stuff does have, I mean, a lot of regulation. Right? And yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully you don't get frustrated.
Yeah, that's my goal, not to get frustrated.
Well, if they gave
But
you
yeah.
a lead on instituting tests for as part of the migration, that's good.
Yeah.
Good. But you know what they say, leaders are the people with the arrows in their back, right? So be careful.
Whoa, what? You say that?
You never heard that?
No.
Maybe you haven't experienced politics
I
in the business world much. That's what.
Mhm.
Never heard, you know, the definition of leader is the person with the arrows in his back, his or her back. So I'm just being flip here, but anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will look at the projects. So
All
is
right.
this meeting like every day or every week?
It's every day. So every day at 5:15, it's usually moderated by Hua, who again couldn't make it. I also have a Scrum on the same project. Well, actually, I participate in a Martin Fowler Scrum on Agile Ventures, which is every morning, 6:30 my time. And the reason I do that is we have people on the project, the MedPlus project, who are in Asia, for whom 5:15 Eastern Standard Time is not a good time for them. So I'm usually in 2 Scrums a day as a result, separated by about 11 hours.
Okay.
So anyway, so it's all good. All right, well, good chatting with you folks, and I'm very happy you guys joined, and please continue, and we'll look for opportunities to intersect on programming and other stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
Time to know. All right, take care. Have a good evening now.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye now.